Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm joining you from my office in Richmond, Virginia. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about new travel trends in 2015, a lot of resources you can take advantage of, and just reasons in general that 2015 should be one of the greatest years for travel yet. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll get started in just a minute. I'm just waiting for a few more people to join in case they're not here right at 11 o'clock. All right, so let's get started today. My name is Becky. I write a travel blog, thegirlandglobe.com. I talk a lot about experiential travel and ways to make that affordable and within reach without, even if you're not a frequent traveler or someone who knows a lot about planning travel. I also do travel consulting, travel planning at my website, altinerary.com. And that's a good way to get some of your questions answered and have someone support you with a little bit more advice, especially if you're going somewhere for the first time or if you're brand new to travel, not really sure how to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the presentation this morning. Great. So let's make 2015 the year of no excuses. It will be a great year to get traveling. As we go through this broadcast, I am doing it live today. You can ask me any questions you want either through the Google Hangouts app if you're watching live from there, or you can reach me on Twitter. I will be checking for notifications or direct messages as we go on. My screen name is @thegirlandglobe. And after the video is finished, I will be publishing it to my YouTube channel. You can see the address there. I will also be publishing these slides online on my blog, so you can reach it from there as well. So it's going to be a good year for travel. I actually believe that 2015 will be one of the years where travel becomes easier, more affordable, and offering a more authentic experience, something that is not really just sightseeing or contrived for tourists, but to really get an idea of what life is like in different places. And then I'll be ending today with a few locations that are on my travel radar. I read lists all the time, top places to travel in 2015, or the best beaches, the best islands, the best hiking places. These are just a few places that I've noticed a lot of, read about lately, and are new on my radar. That doesn't mean they're the best places to go in 2015 unless they fit with what you're looking for specifically. So travel is getting easier. Just finding information on how to plan a trip is a lot easier today than it was 5 years ago. There's a lot of resources on the internet. It's just making everything just sometimes even overwhelming with the amount of information that's available. One of my favorite places to get started is at a website called Wikivoyage. That's wikivoyage.org. And what it is it's free travel guides laid out in a very simple to use pattern about how to get into a place. That's things like airlines that serve that destination, or buses, trains, and where they might be coming from, so you can have a starting point for your trip. And then it goes into places to see, things to do, the different activities that are offered there, an assortment of different accommodations, whether that's luxury hotels or some mid-range places, bed and breakfast, or even some more unique places or campgrounds. And then it also talks about some user favorite restaurants and side trips or places nearby that are really good. So it's kind of a lot of information in one place. It is all user-generated content, the same way that Wikipedia is, which means that all of these ideas have been vouched for by someone who's been there or who lives there. which I really like. It points out a few different things than something like a standard guidebook, a Lonely Planet or a Moon Guide might show you. And it's usually pretty up to date. The one exception is because it's all user generated, there isn't a guide on every single place in the world. If you go for countries, you'll get more information than as you dig deeper and deeper into different cities, towns, or other locations. So it's a great place to start. It's also a great place to contribute if you have something to say about your hometown or a place that you frequently visit and know very well. Travel blogs, obviously I'm a little biased here, but I think they are a very good resource. There's a number of travel blogs that I read on a daily basis. Those are more for inspiration or general travel ideas and advice. But there are a lot of travel blogs out there, and chances are if you Google for an article on any topic or any location or any question you might have, you will be able to find the information you need from an actual person's experience. And that means a lot more than someone who is writing the information for a newspaper or magazine. You're going to get their firsthand experience, what went well, what was really hard, what they didn't realize. And that brings a lot of different perspectives to the table. I do think it's great to obviously read travel blogs that you enjoy for entertainment purposes, but don't be afraid to branch out if there's a specific question you have or a location that you're wondering about. Obviously, not every writer can go to every single place in the world, so it's worthwhile to do a little bit of digging around if there's something new that you're looking for. I've also found that Yelp is becoming a better and better resource as more people are jumping on that bandwagon. I actually like it a lot more than TripAdvisor now, at least for activities and restaurants. It's still a little bit lacking in hotel reviews because it's not the primary purpose of Yelp. But it's a great way, again, to get user experiences. And the reason I like Yelp a little bit better than TripAdvisor now is because it has a local slant to it. Most of the reviews are written by local people rather than travelers. So a traveler might only have 5 restaurants that they visit in their entire trip versus a local person who lives there every day, might be going out once a week, every week for 10 years. They have a different perspective on what's good, what's worthwhile, and it's a fun way to check things out. Social media has also been one of the best travel resources I've found. Obviously, things like Pinterest are really great to bookmark ideas or things that look interesting to you, articles that have proven helpful. But even just giving a shout out on other social media, such as Facebook or Twitter, is a good way to meet people or to approach people who may have been somewhere or done something that is of interest to you and might be able to provide some help. So one thing that people overlook is the ability to join groups on social media. Twitter chats are one example, but Facebook groups are also really great. They get a lot of like-minded people all in one spot, and you can ask questions and get sometimes real-time answers. There's a few times I've posted questions and literally gotten an answer within 30 seconds. So do take advantage of that. It might not be the only thing that you look into, but it's a great way to get inspiration and find things you might not have found otherwise. And then as far as booking goes, everybody has their favorite travel booking websites. I have my own as well, and I've listed some on my blog. You can see the link here. I'm not really sure that it matters too much these days. Most big websites are very credible. You don't have to worry too much about sending your financial data and getting tickets and things like that. That seems less of a concern these days than it may have been in the past. So a lot of it is personal preference for interfacing. I love using Google Flights as a way to search for flights, just because of how they show maps, how they show calendars of low fare days, how they might suggest alternate locations. So that's one of the reasons I like to do that, but I do still do a lot of booking directly through the source. So going directly to an airline website rather than booking it through a travel agency and so on. But again, I have some resources online, so you can check them out and see what might be new or interesting to you. Travel, I think, is getting a lot easier just because it's so easy to always remain connected. Wi-Fi is everywhere these days. You'll find coffee shops in every single town that offers Wi-Fi if for some reason you don't have it at your hotel itself. Um, I literally would trekked from the nearest city in Nepal up for 2 days to the top of a mountain, and even there was a Wi-Fi signal at one of the hotels. So when I say Wi-Fi is everywhere, you have to get really, really far out to lose a signal. It's just amazing. You can be in the middle of the ocean on a cruise ship and still have Wi-Fi. It can be expensive, I will say that, but if you do need it, it is available. And one way to kind of save on those costs is to always sign up for hotel loyalty programs. A lot of hotel chains now are offering free Wi-Fi, but only if you are a member of their program. That usually requires giving a little bit of information, your address, which they probably have on your reservation anyway, your email address. And you can unsubscribe from all of the marketing emails. So you are providing that information, but that doesn't mean you're going to be spammed by them. But just having that loyalty number or your member number is usually enough to get free Wi-Fi. And unfortunately, otherwise hotels can charge, $10 or $20 a day for that internet access. So it can be worthwhile to sign up for these programs, even if you only stay with them once. I'm also using T-Mobile as my phone carrier now for one reason, and that's because they offer international data and texting in about 120 countries worldwide. Obviously, you can get a local SIM card and use that in your phone pretty much everywhere in the world with various costs depending on how you need that. The advantage to T-Mobile is that it's rolled into your monthly price. You're not paying extra for that. But also that once you arrive in a country, all you have to do is turn on your phone. You don't have to go and stand in line to buy a SIM card or to figure out how to get that service set up or, pass on a different phone number. You can just use texting the way that you would normally use texting, for example. I personally don't make a lot of phone calls while I'm abroad. If I do, I use video services like Skype for calling or Google Hangouts. Both of those offer free video calling, or you can turn the video off and just have an audio call the way you would normally do it. And with, FaceTime being built into phones and things like that, there's really not a lot of reason, I think, to worry about making phone calls abroad. But I do really like having the data services. Just being able to check the internet, check your email when you're abroad, Google train schedules or anything that might be a last minute question that you have. It's really handy to have that. So I wrote about it on my blog. I love it from an international perspective, but I will admit that T-Mobile has limited coverage in the United States. That's something that you might want to think about. Especially if you live in a rural area in the United States. If it doesn't work at home, it's probably not something you want to look into, even though it has international coverage. And I will also say that having a GPS built into my cell phone has been a lifesaver on many occasions. A lot of times I love to wander through cities. I love to get lost in cities and just explore wherever looks interesting, wherever you find yourself. But there's other times when, it's late at night, you just want to get back to the hotel, you're not quite sure where your bearings are, or you need directions for public transit and you want to look up bus routes or subway routes. And Google Maps can do all of that. Your GPS is really, really a handy thing to have. So don't be afraid to pull that out and use it. But be aware, if you don't have international roaming, that if you're not connecting to Wi-Fi somewhere, you won't have the maps themselves unless you've saved them offline. And generally speaking, there's a couple of apps that I really like to use. Oanda is one of the best foreign exchange apps. It's, it's really great. It'll show you different rates for currencies, so you can see very quickly when you're in a different country what something might cost you. But one of the other things that I like about it is not just that it'll convert the currency, but that you can also add in things like bank fees. So if you're in another country where they charge a credit card fee or a surcharge on that. Sometimes the company itself will charge you perhaps a 3% convenience fee to pay by credit card versus cash. You can add that 3% right in, and not only will it tell you the amount in your local currency, such as US dollars, so that you know what that's costing you, it'll actually add in that 3% so you can see how much more it'll really be. It'll also charge or add in any credit card fees that you have from your home bank. So if a credit card is charging you 3% because it's an American Express that has foreign exchange charges on it, plus the company is charging you an additional 3%, you can go ahead and add that 6% right in. You can see the all-in price, what it's going to cost you before you decide if it's something you really want to purchase. Pack Point is for those people that don't know how to pack or have trouble keeping things to what they really need. I am actually probably the most minimalist packer you might ever meet. I bring a couple changes of clothes. I know the technology I need and any special accessories, things like that I want to bring with me. But I'm pretty good at packing light. I know a lot of people have trouble with that. I get questions on how to pack fairly frequently, and pack because you will put in the activities that you're doing and it will tell you the activities. So if you know you're going to the beach, it's going to be a very different packing list than if you're going to business meetings in a city, or if you have formal dinners that you're dressing up for, or if you're going to be outdoors and you know you need hiking shoes, that kind of thing. So you just select the activities and it'll come up with an all-inclusive list. And it'll show you which things you definitely need, things like clean socks, and other things that maybe you just might want to think about optionally, such as bringing your snorkel gear to the beach if you don't want to pay rental fees, or if you're even interested in that activity. Road Ahead is one that I use all the time. It's basically an app that tells you what's at every interstate exit. You know, not every exit on the highway actually has those signs that say what food or gas is there. Road Ahead will do all of that for you on all major US highways. So it's really great. It's very up to date, and it'll show you more than just whoever paid the advertising fees to get their names on the actual billboards. It's also great because you can search for your favorite places. If you know that you don't like to eat at McDonald's, you can make sure that when you're looking for food, you can specify a different fast food place that you want to stop at. It'll show you gas prices, so you know what to expect when you're getting off there. And something that my husband and I find invaluable is it'll also show you which gas stations have diesel gas, if that's something that you have to consider. So it's very helpful. The Converted is kind of another conversion app. It will do currency exchanges just without the extra add-ons like bank fees. But it will also do conversions of all other sorts. Distances, if you're not very good at converting between kilometers and miles, it'll help you with that, so you know when you might want to be walking and how far away things are. It'll also tell you temperature conversions. So again, if you're not really sure how warm 20 degrees Celsius, and if you need a sweater that day, or if you're going to be wearing a bathing suit, it'll do all of those easy calculations for you. So it's really great. And one last app that I just shared on my blog recently is called TouchNote, and that's using pictures that you take on your phone and converting them into postcards or greeting cards that you can send all over the world. So if you are vacationing in Australia and you know it's going to take a while for your postcard to get home, and you still want to send a special note home, you can take a picture, any picture you want from your phone, whether that's a scenic portrait or you know, a selfie, and you can go ahead and send that. And it usually only takes a few days for them to print it and to mail it, because they're using distribution centers in the country you're actually mailing to. So even though you might be in Australia, they might be using a US post office to send that, which means it'll be much quicker to deliver. And I know that a lot of air travel can be stressful at times, but it is getting easier. I wouldn't say it's entirely easy yet, but it is much easier. TSA PreCheck is something that you find in about 120 airports now. You've probably seen it if you've flown in the last couple of years. And basically what it is it's giving you a shorter line, first of all, to even get to the security belts. But once you're there, it's a much easier experience. You don't have to take your shoes off. You're not going to go through those x-ray machines. You're just going to go through a standard metal detector. And you don't have to take your laptop out of your bag or your Ziploc bag of soaps and shampoos. You can leave everything right the way you packed it. So that makes things a lot easier. And then global entry includes TSA PreCheck, but it goes on one additional offering, and that is that when you come in from another country, when you go through customs and immigration, you actually go to these touchscreen machines, which you can see in the picture here to the left. You just scan your passport and give it a fingerprint reading and answer a few questions on the touch screen, and it'll print out a little receipt that you take through customs. It's a lot easier than standing in line and having to talk to someone. You can still be randomly selected, of course, to answer any questions that Border Patrol would like to ask you. But the times I've used it, I've gotten through in about 30 seconds compared to, waiting in line for a half hour or sometimes longer, depending on how things go. If you do travel internationally, I would highly recommend getting global entry. It's $100 and it lasts for 5 years, compared to PreCheck, which is also a 5-year program and costs $85. So essentially you're spending $15 to get that additional international travel benefit. The good news is you can sometimes get that reimbursed. One of the credit cards that I have is an American Express Platinum. It actually gives you an allowance essentially to pay for that global entry. So I didn't even have to spend that $100. It's worth looking into. The downside to both of them is that you have to have an interview ahead of time to be approved for the programs. And the global entry one in particular does take a little bit of scheduling to get there at the right time and at the right location, because it's not offered everywhere. Essentially, you'll want to be at a major hub airport in the United States or a major city. So you'll have to rearrange your travel plans if you don't already live in one of those places to ensure you have time for an appointment. And one of the other secrets to having a stress-free air travel experience is to just get lounge access. There's a lot of ways to get free access. A lot of airline credit cards offer that. So that's great. But even if you're not willing to get one of those airline branded credit cards, there's still a way to get into the lounges. There are passes all the time on eBay that typically sell for about $20 each, which is a considerable savings compared to the $50 that airlines typically charge if you just show up at the door. So for $20, what it gives you is a quiet space, a more comfortable chair, Wi-Fi so that you can get work done or entertain yourself, and usually an assortment of drinks and snacks that may or may not include alcoholic beverages. If it does, it's often just like house beers, house wines. It's nothing special. And the snacks can be anything from some pretzels and fruit to really elaborate meals. So it does vary a lot by airline and by lounge itself. But usually I find that that $20 is a really good way to kind of easily and comfortably spend your lounge time. And if all else fails and you don't have passes that you purchased ahead of time, bribes work. Most people who have access to these lounges, either because they're frequent flyers or because they have the right credit card, can usually bring in a guest at no additional charge. So you can actually stand outside lounges and ask if someone will guest you in. It works sometimes. And if you offer to buy them a drink at the bar inside the lounge, once you're inside, get something for a $10 or $12 drink charge or a snack. If they, a lot of places sell pre-made meals, that $10 or $12 can also be a good way to help someone else out as they're helping you. So it's worth a try, especially if you have a long layover or if you had a delay, you didn't expect to be there as long. It's a good way to have a little bit of comfort and quiet in the middle of an airport. So next I'd like to talk about how travel is getting cheaper in 2015. It's not true across the board, but there are certainly ways and methods that are getting cheaper. Gas prices have plummeted, obviously, over the last couple of months. It's less than $2 a gallon here in Richmond right now in January 2015, which is just incredible. I haven't seen prices that low in years. So it's a great time to take advantage of that for road trips, whether you're actually leaving from home or maybe you're flying to a new starting point and then renting a car and planning on doing a road trip from that point. Either way, it's really, really a great time to kind of do those trips where you see a lot of places in one regional area. So that's a great option. And one way to take advantage of that even more is to pair those falling fuel prices with hotel deals. There are apps these days like Hotel Tonight, which is one that I really like, where you don't have to plan ahead. You can just get on the road, see how far you get, and then you can still make a last minute booking right there from your phone without any issues. It's you know, a lot of fun. And if you use the app I mentioned earlier, not only will it show you fast food and gas stations off exits, but it will also show you hotels and give you hotel phone numbers so you can call and make a reservation if you'd rather do it that way. You can also take advantage of memberships. Things like AAA will give you discounts all over. If you're doing road trips, it can be a good one. But people don't think outside the box here, and a lot of museum memberships can actually be great ways to save money on road trips as well. So if you really love science museums, it might be worthwhile to join your science museum at home. That can come with a cost of usually $50 to $75 a person, sometimes much cheaper, especially if you're buying family packs. Maybe you get a family of 4 for $100, for example. And compared to paying $15 or $20 a person admission at each of those museums, if you know you're going to hit a lot of them, most memberships have reciprocal agreements where you can get into quite possibly 100 or more different museums nationwide with that same membership. So you pay that $50 upfront cost, and if you use the membership for free admission at 3 or 4 different museums over the course of a week-long road trip, you're money ahead, and that's not even including anywhere else you might go for the rest of the year. Zoos do that as well. Art museums do that. So it's worth looking into that. And also it's worth looking into all of the museums that you have planned, because everybody has a different membership price. So just do a little bit of research. It might be cheaper to buy the museum membership at home, or it might be cheaper to buy it at the first museum that you visit if they have a lower membership price to start with. And a lot of people think that road trips aren't that exciting, especially if you leave from home rather than leaving from somewhere brand new. It's kind of unfortunate because people have lost that drive or that initiative to see things that are close to home. So if you're looking for a reason to road trip near home, look for events in neighboring towns or counties or states. Look for special occasions. You can kind of get that exotic or special vacation feel without necessarily getting on a plane and going to a new country if you just time it on the right week. There's things going on all over the country all the time. So look for those festivals and concerts, things like that. And you can really make the most of a road trip. And to kind of go back to how much information is online these days, not only can you get travel planning and resources, but you can also find bargains and sales on the internet. It's not that difficult. It's really hard for companies to keep things secret now. People pick up on deals all the time, and before you know it, they're online and open for public finding. One of my favorite websites is called The Flight Deal. What they do is they show really low airfares to different destinations, both domestically and abroad, usually from major airports. So if you live somewhere close to New York or Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, those types of airline hubs, you'll get the most sales, but they also have some for smaller airports as well. So keep a lookout. Some of those are legitimate airline sales that they're just dropping prices to compete with competitors. And there can be some really great prices or promotions on brand new routes if they're trying to advertise that they're flying to a new city. There's some great prices that way. And the flight deal also shows sometimes when maybe there was a mistake in the airfare price. And those can be insanely low. There were flights earlier this year from New York to Abu Dhabi, for example, for less than $200 round trip. When you see something that's unbelievably low like that, do be aware that those tickets aren't really guaranteed necessarily. So I wouldn't make any other non-refundable plans based on those until you are really, really sure that those tickets will be honored, which can take up to a week to really follow up on. So just be careful with that. The best rate guarantee website is showing some low hotel prices. This one might be less helpful just because a lot of those low hotel prices are only on a very short limited time, 2 or 3 nights out of the year at specific hotels. But when they work, they can be really great prices. Hotels in Chicago for $15 a night, suites in New York City for $60 a night, things like that. So that's also worth looking at, and maybe even planning a trip around those. And then lastly, TravelZoo is one of thousands of different websites that show travel packages and deals. TravelZoo just happens to be one of my favorites because they consistently share deals that I think are actual savings, but also actually interesting. So they have everything from island getaways, airfare, and all-inclusive resorts, perhaps for $800 a person for 6 nights maybe, and other group tours through other countries. Cruises can be a great way, and TravelZoo has a lot of deals on cruises. So just look at some of these websites to start looking for ideas. And if you have favorite travelers, it's really worth connecting with them either through email or through social media, because people do share information all the time. I know that sometimes I share information on deals, especially on Twitter, because it's where information comes in and out very quickly. But you can find these just through word of mouth. If people find good deals, good prices, they'll share it, and they'll also tell you their opinion on if they've been there before and if they'd like to do it again, and if it's honestly and truly a good price. And the last way you can really save a lot of money, especially now in 2015, is through the sharing economy. And this has really taken off to provide lots and lots of resources and options compared to perhaps even just a year or two ago. There's a lot of new websites popping up to make this easier, and a lot more people getting on board with existing services to just provide the variety that you might need. So you can save a lot of money on accommodations through shared places. Obviously, hostels have been around for ages, but couch surfing is a good way to get free accommodations. Do be aware that every place you stay is going to have a very different physical setup and also a very different host. So finding the right combination is something that you should spend some time looking into. House sitting is one way to get accommodations for free. You literally stay in someone's house, usually in exchange for light yard work, like watering their flower garden, or for pet care especially. So if people are going on vacation and they don't want to take their animals to a kennel, they might prefer to have someone stay in their home and play with their pets, feed their pets, that kind of thing. And so if you're willing to put in, an hour of work a day, you might have a whole home to yourself, kitchens, living rooms, usually Wi-Fi. So that can be a great way to do it. And then I also really like Airbnb. I know not everyone likes it, but I found it to be a way to still get a lot of private places all to yourself, without commitment, without limited time frames the way that house sitting might be, and be able to save a lot of money compared to booking a standard hotel. A lot of times you can get the same room for half the price, the same amount of space rather, or you might be able to get extra amenities that you wouldn't have if you stayed in a hotel, having those living rooms available to you, or things that you don't think about. When I was in Hawaii, I had free surfboard rentals at one of the Airbnb places I stayed at, so that can be fun too. And then rental cars is actually an area that's starting to have more of the sharing economy come through. There's a program called Flight Car, where people who have parked their car at the airport will actually let you borrow their car, or rent their car rather, while they're gone. So it's good for you because you might pay half the price as what you would pay a standard rental car company, and it's good for them because not only are they not paying parking because you're out and driving their car, but they're also making a small amount of income from that. So it's only at major airports right now. It is kind of limited in geographic scope, but if it's something that you're interested, it might be worth looking into. And then relay rides is kind of the same idea. People might not have their car at the airport, but if their car is just sitting around at home and not being used, they might also rent their car out that way. So those are some other options to look into, ways to save money by basically using other people's things. And then I also think that travel is getting more interactive, and that's a great way to find 2015 to be one of those years that's a really great year for travel. Experiential tourism is growing in popularity and in offerings. I've stayed in homestays in a couple of different continents, which is kind of insane, but it lets you see what life is really like. And if you're not quite into diving in that deeply, you can also just stay in local neighborhoods. There's programs like One Fine Stay, which are letting you rent out people's homes in different neighborhoods. So you can see how a local resident would live and what things are like in that area rather than perhaps in the tourist centers. And then dining is also one of the areas that is really, really growing these days. You can use different websites like Eat With or Book a Local. And both of those are ways to either find dining companions to go out to dinner with, have conversations with. They might show you the neighborhood hotspot restaurant and then talk to you about what things are like in the area, give you tips on things you might not find on your own. Or they might actually invite you to eat in their home, and usually you pay some sort of a nominal fee, usually less than what you would pay in a restaurant. You can see the inside of their house, see what they really eat in that region, and just have a very different experience. And then one of the most interesting programs that I've found and haven't actually had a chance to take advantage of yet is with KLM Airlines, which is based in the Netherlands. And that's their Meet and Seat program, which will actually let you meet other people on the airplane who have opted in to provide some information or a personal profile, and then choose seats next to someone on the airline so you can have a conversation that might be interested. So you can meet people from all over the world that way, maybe someone who lives in an area that you're headed to, and really get some information, or vice versa. You could share information with someone who might be coming to your area. So it's kind of a fun idea. I don't know how much it'll take off or if it'll expand to other airlines, but for now I think that's great. And then lastly, site doing. This is something that I've been doing for years. I think it's a really important part of travel, and that's really getting hands-on and interactive with where you are, instead of just taking pictures of sites or passively going to exhibits. It's trying to actually see how things are done and experience it hands-on. And there's a number of companies that will have local people who are passionate about certain things show you around. The Greeter Network has been around for a number of years now, and that's to meet up with people in certain major cities worldwide, and they will show you a very specific part of the city, answer questions, and usually they have some sort of expertise or passion, so it's way better than a standard walking tour. And it's also free, so that's great as well. But I've mentioned a couple other websites here, like Viable and Tours by Locals, and those are also offered by local people, and can be something to do with their interests and hobbies that just get you involved rather than just observing from the outside. And lastly, meetup.com is actually aimed towards locals, but there's no reason you can't use it, even if you're just a traveler or a visitor. And on Meetup, you'll find different people setting up activities or events that might have something to do with the place that you're going that you might be really interested in. So not only can you connect with other people who live in that area, but you can try something that you might not have the opportunity to try at home. But most importantly, if there's something that you want to try and you don't see a tour or an offering on that, just ask. You would be amazed at, for example, artists. If you're going to their studio and watching them work or looking at their completed projects, you can ask if they will show you or teach you how they did that. They might not realize that there's a market for people who want to try things. And it's worked out more often than you would expect, that if you ask someone, even if they don't offer a tour, that they might be willing to set something up for you. And then lastly, I just wanted to close today with a couple of locations that are on my radar this year. Cuba is obviously the really big one, at least for Americans. Travel restrictions have already been eased for certain scenarios, like people going down there for religious or educational reasons, humanitarian work, volunteers, journalists. A lot of people can already go down there without special licenses now. And general tourists still cannot go. I do expect that to change within the next year, although the timeline is still uncertain and unspecified. But it's just kind of a cool place to think about because it's so untouched and it hasn't been built up the same way that Caribbean islands or Mexico or other island resorts in general have really been built up. And you know, I think it appeals to a lot of people. It's also a really short flight from the United States. So there's that as an advantage. I don't know if it's overrated because I haven't been there, but it's clearly someplace that's on a lot of people's radar for this year. Myanmar is a country that I've heard more and more about, I feel like only in the past 3 or 4 months. It's getting a lot of attention, especially from travelers that really like to go off the beaten path or to be somewhere that nobody else has. And it has a lot of alternatives to places in Southeast Asia that you might consider overdone or over touristed, or places that are really popular but you've already been there and seen that. So if you liked Angkor Wat in Cambodia, or if you liked you know, hiking through northern Thailand, you might find Myanmar has a few of its own ways to kind of do the same things, but in a new place and with a new culture. And everybody that I've talked to says that the locals are just incredibly friendly, perhaps because they're not overrun by tourists and they don't feel like they've been beat up by so many people coming through their country. So worth looking into, but it's also, you should note that the tourist infrastructure is not built up the same way that many other places in Southeast Asia are. You won't find that everybody speaks English. You won't find hundreds of tourist shuttles and buses. Travel times between regions can take a long time. And there's unfortunately still a few areas where your safety might be a concern, just general protests and instability. So it's something that you should look into and avoid certain areas. But there's also a lot of areas that seem 100% safe and really interesting. So if you're willing to put in the effort to research and to try a little bit harder on the ground, it is a great place to consider in Southeast Asia, especially if you've already seen a lot of other countries in that area and want something new. Croatia is a country that seems to be picking up a lot of interest in the United States, even though it's been a popular destination for European travelers for years. I wouldn't say it's a new destination. I just think it's getting interest in the United States and people hadn't been before. I went there in 2013, and I can recommend the country. I didn't see all of it. There's a lot that I still need to see there, including the big name destinations like Dubrovnik or Split. However, what I did see of the country was really great. I didn't think the beaches were particularly spectacular, but I'm not a beach person. And I went to a hill town in the Istria region, which was really great and kind of made me feel like maybe I was in Tuscany. Really just huge focus on food and flavors and wine, and way cheaper than Tuscany would be. So it's a kind of an interesting alternative. And I've heard a lot of the rest of the country is worth looking into also. So if you're looking for something different in Europe, it's one to look into. The Azores is one that has me really intrigued. I've seen a lot of airfare deals, particularly from Boston and Toronto, and then a lot of packages to the Azores for really affordable prices. I am actually surprised at how cheap it can be. For example, $375 for a round trip flight from Boston, or $800, which would include a package of airfare and 6 or 7 nights hotel. Kind of amazing. It seems like a very scenic place. Mild weather. It is a little bit farther south compared to continental Europe, and it is milder just because it's surrounded by the ocean. But the landscapes look spectacular. A lot of volcanic landscapes, a lot of really green and fertile areas. If you like hiking, if you like whale watching, it can be, it looks like a very interesting destination. So it's on my radar. I don't know if I'll make it there in 2015, but I think it's really worth looking into. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and flip over to see if I have any questions waiting for me. And I don't know if I see any questions here. All right, I have one question from a viewer that says, do you use IFTTT at all to alert you to any travel deals? You mentioned the flight deal, and I have a trigger on that, and also a Flyer Talk forum for New York City airports. I was wondering if there's anything outside the box that I'm missing. So I do not actually have alerts. What I do is I have Feedly, which is essentially an RSS reader that brings in different forums, different threads, and different blog posts so that I can see those either on my computer or on my phone, depending on where I'm using the app. I don't know if there's anything outside of the box. I do know that there are several groups, secret groups rather, where people will share really great airfare deals, either things they don't want to publish on the internet because they think that will kill the deal or end it preemptively. Without knowing somebody in those groups, I don't think it's possible to get access. The first way to really get involved in that is just to start talking to people, making connections, and hopefully partnering up with the right people. But you know, a lot of it is unfortunately just waiting for what airfares might come up, what deals might come up. And I don't see any other questions. I'll wait here for another minute or two just to see if something ends up popping up. But otherwise, I just wanted to thank you all for joining me. I know it's a Sunday and you have other things to do on your weekend, but I really appreciate you joining me. Hopefully I could provide a little bit more information on travel trends and some tips for 2015. And I hope you all have a really great year of travel. I don't see any other questions coming in. So again, thank you. I will be publishing this on YouTube, and I will be publishing the slides for my presentation on my blog. So look for those over the next day or two, and I'll send out another alert when those are ready and available. All right, thank you all, and have a great weekend.